Hi everyone, we're going to get started now. We're thrilled to have everyone here for our webinar co-hosted with our partner dotCMS, integrating existing systems with a CMS. So during the webinar, we'll be exploring how one client tackled the challenge of integrating a legacy system with their CMS to handle storing and sharing content privately, while maintaining a public-facing platform with many user roles and permissions. So we have two of our experts here. We have Brent Stencil, Solution Architect at Architect Solutions over here. And we have Jason Tesser, our Director of Engineering at dotCMS. So we're thrilled to have both of these subject matter experts with us today. A little bit about Jason. So Jason from dotCMS, our Director of Engineering at dotCMS, his primary focus is the product as it relates to R&D and the building out of features and solving issues within the product. Brent from Architech began working in software over 20 years ago and is an early adopter of Agile, starting with extreme programming in 2000. As a solution architect at Architech, Brent focuses on 4 areas: sales support, solution quality, growth of architect staff, and external thought leadership. So we're thrilled to have them both here with us today. I'll hand it over to Brent to get us started.
That's super. Thanks a lot, Orly. I'm really glad to have everyone here today with us. Thanks a lot for making the effort to join us. You'll be able to join the conversation today. Orly, you want to mention where they can join the conversation?
Yep, so we will be live tweeting some of this webinar, anything that we feel we'd like to share with our audience, anything you like to share with us, feel free to join us. So we have the dotCMS handle as well as our Architect handle, and you'll see that we'll be using the hashtag #IntegrateCMS.
Super, and thanks a lot to dotCMS and Jason as well today for joining us. So let's jump right in, get started talking about who we are. First of all, Architect. We're a custom software design firm. We focus on a couple of different areas. We have practices for strategy, design, engineering, and cognitive analytics. And this is really important when building software from the strategy perspective to understand what to build so that the software is viable, and to design it appropriately to rather to make sure that it's usable by with a user-focused design practice. We focus on a consistent agile process to deliver based on speed and quality. We are early agile adopters and have had years and years of experience of this, as well as many, many clients. We work with both startups, mid-size, and enterprise clients, so we do everything from brand new product development, updating existing products, as well as loads of complex system integrations as well. We really focus specifically on custom Java and JavaScript solutions, and we are very cloud friendly. I would say cloud first, but we also support working with on-prem solutions as well. So that's a little bit about Architect. Jason, mind telling us a bit about dotCMS?
Sure. dotCMS, we've been around for quite some time, dating back into the 90s. We had come around during when everybody was looking for web management, and over time, as we designed solutions, we eventually put all of those pieces that we had done for clients into a product, and hence dotCMS was born. dotCMS is a very community-driven project and product. I think this is a very good thing for those that use dotCMS and for partners like Architect who use dotCMS, because dotCMS is really built by and for people who actually use the product, but without sacrificing the enterprise nature of software which businesses would demand. dotCMS is built for integrations, and as is shown on the slide here, think APIs. We're REST APIs, ability to get data in and out of the system, content in and out of the system, being able to play very friendly with the other pieces of software in the sandbox is very important for us. So we could and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, we can do as much or as little as you want. dotCMS is also very focused on customization and being able to not just use as much or little as you want, but even use it kind of how you want to be able to use it. So while we have a lot of functionality, you're able to customize, you're able to have extension points, you're able to put your own custom logic, things of this nature into dotCMS and use it in a way that makes sense for your business. We're also very much focused on flexibility, on scalability. This means you want to run one, you can run one. You need to run 5, 6, 10 dotCMSs, that's fine, or many more. The ability to scale, whether it be in the cloud, as Brent was just talking about, or even on-prem. Of course, a lot of people use a mixture of those two solutions, which dotCMS will play friendly with and has a lot of different options for you as well. And moving forward, just the ability to grow, to scale on demand, and have more advanced deployment strategies. These things are very important to us as a product, both now and as we move forward. You can continue on, Brent.
Great, thanks, Jason. So I want to talk a little bit about CMS integration in the enterprise. These days, of course, an enterprise is, no one's running one piece of software. Inevitably, what happens is we've evolved a set of platforms that bring a load of capabilities to the business, and anything new coming into that ecosystem is going to have to play very well in a potentially very diverse sandbox. So when it comes to CMS, you've got a lot of touch points to your business, and any CMS solution is very likely to benefit from integration with those existing enterprise platforms. So just a few example targets here would be, say, your single sign-on authority. So folks who are, have already got a login, they don't have to create a new one for just the CMS platform specifically. You've got marketing automation campaigns. You've got your CRM platform. There could be reports being generated from your business intelligence platform that you may want to be feeding into your CMS for use on your website, or again, used with all those other those systems like the marketing automation platform. And then you're going to still have your own custom middleware services that have been developed maybe by a vendor like Architech that you're going to want to be driving content out of or into the CMS as well. And given especially that even two enterprises that have got the same platform deployed, the configuration and the use cases are going to be really varied, and as a result, you're still going to probably need some sort of custom solution to enable your content management system, as well as get it playing well with all those other systems in the space. So I'm going to take you to our specific client challenge that we're going to talk about today. We were working with an internet technology company. They were sort of stranded on in a legacy system, and this had a number of issues. So you've got a lot of aging websites where they're running probably about 10 websites, and these are running across diverse CMS instances. So this content is not consolidated into one instance, as well as across different CMS technologies, and those are even small, medium, and large CMS technologies. So you've got folks that are working offline, traditional document authoring style workflow, which is not being aggregated into any kind of central system. So you have no consistent auditing of content or versioning of content or any specific publishing workflow either. So folks essentially are working in an ad hoc manner. They're sending documents around, everything from legal to external marketing publication. Just sending it around by email and trying to track it all with those many parallel threads that result when you're working just through that sort of system. What this does in terms of web publishing is require this offline content aggregation. I mean, when you're building content for web, it's really a different authoring situation than a traditional document. Traditional document, you can write the content inside, you can add images, you can send it to your friend by email, and you can say that content is done. You can say that document is complete. But when it comes to building for web, you need to aggregate images, you need to aggregate files, you need to embed links that relate to other pages in the ecosystem, and you need to put text onto a web page that lives in some specific context, and that's a web context. And that's a web page, and that's a template, as well as the CSS and the styling that actually renders that onto the page. So this is much more complicated. And what happened then is when you're doing offline authoring in this way, you put all these different pieces together. That is the text snippets, the images, figure out where the files are, and then you send that all through you bottleneck through a person. So you basically put that into a ticketing system that a person is going to pull out, and then they're going to go affect that change on the public website. So when you've got 10 different instances and various technologies, well, an author in the enterprise cannot just go and start changing content necessarily. So this is the way that this organization has brought some organization to the process, is to say, well, we're going to have a dedicated web team so that at least we've got the same set of hands working in this system. But without sort of direct-to-web authoring capabilities where everything can be aggregated in situ and different cross-functional team members can collaborate in the same place, it's a much more inefficient process. So in the end, everything's got to go through someone else, and that someone else has got to actually make the final decisions about how that gets published to the web. Meaning the original authors are essentially left out of the process, or meaning that there's a very inefficient publishing process. So it's got to be aggregated, organized into that ticketing system, pulled off, the change made, published to some system, and then invite all people to come and provide feedback. At that point, maybe they say that's not quite right. So the whole thing has got to start over again. So now to add to that point, this is also an organization that has a very multinational presence in a multinational community. So we're talking about 7+ languages here. This heavy translation burden actually has a multiplying effect when it comes on to, when you apply it to these content inefficiencies. So you've just done that once to get the, say, the English content out. Well, now you've got to do it again for every other language. And then when it comes to making an edit, of course, you've got the exact same translation burden coming through again. So some of the challenges of the company that we faced, we were able to uncover their unique business needs. They had a document management platform in place for their enterprise assets. So this became a constraint on the system. The idea here was, how can we treat all of those enterprise assets as well as all that web content holistically, given that they really do need different treatment, as I mentioned there. And also, how can we support multiple enterprise and web content authoring use cases? You had all kinds of ways to create content in this current ecosystem. How are we going to support those in a streamlined fashion in the future state? And then also, how are we going to integrate with the existing mature translation workflow that they've worked very hard to optimize? There's everything from how much it costs to get a translation done is affected by this existing translation workflow. So it didn't make sense to walk in and just start changing that out from under their feet. So how do we help the client? Well, first of all, why Architech? We're the only Platinum dotCMS partner in North America, so we were a clear choice to take on the system integration of this magnitude. We have got loads of experience in web content management and general CMS migration, as well as having worked with dotCMS. We really know the ins and outs of the different assets and the different tools that dotCMS provides, from plugins to content as a service. We're very familiar with these things. We also apply a design thinking and an agile engineering methodology. So when it comes to getting in there and trying to sort out the challenges that are presented by this complex system of stakeholders, in this case, a very large organization, it really helped to have a partner like us to come in and consider their problem, our problem, so that our strategists can begin understanding and dissecting what it is that they need, what it is that they care about, and trying to figure out those pain points and how to solve them for that customer. We've also got experience with complex enterprise system integrations outside of CMS. So, where there are economies of scale or mind share that we've already got that we can apply from previous problems we've solved to this specific problem that are not exactly always CMS related when it comes to a really complex integration. Jason's going to speak a little bit now to why dotCMS was the vendor of record.
Sure, and I think we were the vendor of record here. It speaks a little bit to what I was saying here a little bit ago when I was introducing the product, and it really comes in, as you see in the slide here, for ease of use. It speaks to the fact that dotCMS is one, built for integration, and not just for integration, but being able to be your content store, your content of record, being able functionality and features like that you would expect out of a CMS, like workflow, but without, and sometimes when people hear workflow, they think, oh no, this is scary, workflow's big, and I've been in large workflow systems. Well, dotCMS brings the benefits of workflow, it brings the benefits of content search, the benefits of content storage, whether, you know, and as is mentioned here, dynamically. We bring that without always adding some of the extras, the heaviness of it. We have a very our approach is to be minimalistic, not overly minimalistic, but in a way that is easy to use, in a way that is intuitive. And again, I think that all of this really is built on the foundation that dotCMS is really driven by the needs of those people who run it. We're an enterprise product, but we're not an enterprise product who builds software in a box. Our thinking is not, well, let us build all these features and then tell people what they need. As a company and as a product, what's very important to us is the feedback of those who are using it, the requirements of those who are using it, and that makes, as why dotCMS was selected here by the client and for the business needs, is dotCMS was a good fit because we have come across many of these problems with many different clients and many different sectors of business and many different partners and such. And as we've come across those problems, we seek to build them in a very streamlined, intuitive kind of way into the system. And no tool solves everything, and but dotCMS is an excellent platform for doing this kind of work. And we were thankful that at least in this case we were able to work with Architect on the solution.
Okay, thanks, Jason. So we let our content strategists loose on the problem. We worked with the organization, and we started uncovering a lot of different pain points, a lot of different requirements. These are just some of them. You know, how do we actually define where the content should live, and how should we get to the final architecture, the final solution? These were some of the inputs, some of the client comments that we heard. So what was our approach? Well, first of all, we go into the discovery phase. We want to set goals and a vision statement, and we want to really collaborate on what the expectations are going to be for a successful project. So we'll set those goals, we'll get alignment on them, and then we'll come back and revisit them at the end of the project. Rank ourselves a little bit on them. We want to identify everything the client knows already. What are your existing biases? What sort of metrics do you have? You know, how much content are we talking about? How many websites and things like this? And then also, what's the technical ecosystem? So what sort of parameters are we working within? You know, is our approach, is our recommended technology solution going to work in your ecosystem? You know, this is your business, so you're going to have to take this on at the end. Then we move into phase 2, which is user-centric design. We want to understand the user journey mapping. These are the needs, the wants, the values, and the behaviors of the actual users in the system. In this case, there are loads of users. There are users that are coming to websites, and there are users that are maintaining content and authoring it behind the scenes. There are also systems operators that have to deal with the complexity of any sort of integration that we recommend and undertake. So there are a lot of people to balance here, as well as you know, what are the high-level stakeholders in the organization want to get out of this this consolidated approach. So we capture the current user flow of the authoring flow, say, and then we streamline that into a desired future state, so that we can figure out how the architecture is going to actually support that. We come into requirements definition, where we're identifying clear constraints from all that preparatory work that we just discussed, and we're solidifying use cases, as well as identifying specific pain points and any accelerators to the process. So this is where we can come in as technical leaders and actually say, look, we've got some good ideas here. We worked with these sorts of systems before, and you know, we would take this fork in the road, not the other. Again, it's the client's business, so you know, they may take our recommendations, they may not, but certainly we're gonna put our foot in and argue for what makes sense for us. You know, we all want to be working on a system that makes sense, and we'll fight for that. You know, we act as a partner for our clients. So you know, you can imagine us a little bit as a software engineering department within your company who's trying to get the right thing done so that we all live in the nicest place possible. Then we come to our recommendations, where we outline the final findings and the strategy, and suggest the architecture that supports the business before working into the implementation phase, where we can build it out. And what did we discover during those phases? Well, as I mentioned, we had a number of different actors. It's very complex. We've got internal content and external content, and therefore internal and external users. We've got people approving content as well as authoring it. And we've also got people publishing it who've got the rights to say, send this onto the web now, or send this out to the content. Send this out to a marketing campaign. We had a lot of different use cases. We ended up with interesting cases like long-form offline copy being authored, say in Microsoft Word documents, as well as online, just you know, a few paragraphs here and there that need to be integrated, aggregated in with some as web content, with some images and some file links. We also had cases for fire and forget publishing, where someone wants to just add a snippet of content, add a file, add a report, and that's just going to get consumed onto the web without anyone actually touching it in between. Then we've got subject matter expert and web publishing approval. So we've got a couple different layers of approval there, where the original content, the file, or the document has to be approved, and then the actual content aggregation on the website has to also be approved. And then we have translation requests, which, as I mentioned, is a major challenge for this organization. We came to understand the system responsibilities, how the different systems are going to play well together. So we have this constraint to use a document management system for files, media, and that sort of thing, as well as to have the web publishing arm where dotCMS comes in. So you know, we have this content system of record concept, as well as all of the workflows, approvals that are required to get content pushed through those workflows, and also the extensibility. So you know, we're dealing a lot with how can we build modules that are hooking in naturally with these systems, a lot of API integration and this sort of thing. Finally, we had different types of content. So we've got internal and web content, we've got static assets, and we've got customizable user web content. So this leads us to structured content types. This leads us to different treatment for a file that's just going to be a related file to a piece of content, and ways to deal with all these different categories of content holistically, so that we can systematize how they're pulled from the various systems and how they're displayed on the front end without having to treat everything like a snowflake. Finally, some of the streamlining of workflows to just optimize what folks are doing today and make the technology solution something that's actually a future direction and not just a mirror of what they're dealing with today. So this is going to bring in optimization and streamlining. So as I mentioned, that big client constraint was that assets are going to be stored in a DMS. We don't necessarily need our content stored in a DMS, but this is the business's choice. So we're going to just we're going to go with that. We analyzed ways around that, and the business decided, no, we want to go this way, and that's fine. So they're going to store their assets like documents and media in a document management system, and this is going to perform a number of capabilities in the overall solution, such as storage, backup, versioning, distribution and tagging, as well as retrieval and translation of assets. And of course, translation was such a big pain point for this organization, that having all content in one system and all translations initiated from one system was of huge benefit, and this really justified the decision to use the DMS this way. They're storing private content that's never intended for web, so they don't even want the chance for someone to reverse a permission flag or anything like this and allow this content to be exposed into the web ecosystem. And then, of course, we need content creation tools for documents and media, and the DMS does support these. So you can have your offline editors, you can have your mobile editors, and these are going to connect very well to your DMS and allow updates and content locking and all this sort of features. So while dotCMS offers these capabilities, the client imposed this constraint, and so that's part of our solution, and that's part of the interesting solution that's going on here. But next, we need to organize the content for the web. So the client needs to operate sites, but the DMS is missing dotCMS's really superior support for overlaying web concepts onto content. So what do I mean by that? Well, I call dotCMS in this architecture the web publishing platform. So files and media in the DMS are agnostic. They just live there in folders. But dotCMS is allowing you to organize your content into pages on sites. These are displayed by templates with styles. That's very different than a Word doc sitting in a folder. So further to that, what about web search? Well, you can search your DMS, and that's going to be a system of record for everything that's there. But all you're going to do is find it, be able to access and change it. That doesn't enable external users to actually find that content on your website. Web search is a very different problem. So you need the web context. You need to see the link that leads you to that page where that piece of content is stored. And dotCMS has very powerful indexing and searching capabilities, and allows you to organize your content into this web context. So dotCMS also has very powerful content aggregation and authoring and publishing tools. So I contend that you can't actually publish live to the web without a preview. Otherwise, all you're doing is publishing to some other server, some staging server or something like this, where you can invite people to go look at it, or you can go look at it yourself. But then when you need to change something, you're in a long feedback loop to go back, get it changed, get it published again, and then go look at it again. Very different from that is media authors, as well as text, like long-form text and content authors, collaborating to aggregate the content in place, and then looking at it as they've done so, and then talking about it and saying, this image is not looking right here. Maybe we need to change the CSS behind the scenes. Let's talk to the development team. Or simply, I don't like the words that you're using there. Let's change that, and then we'll just push button, publish it out. So the idea here was to integrate dotCMS as the web publishing platform with the DMS. See the next slide. So Jason, did you want to mention a little bit about how dotCMS is playing that role?
Sure. I think you kind of hit on it there, Brent. As far as we're, at least in this particular use case, offering kind of that separation of content from the presentation of it, which, as you mentioned, I mean, dotCMS can do, but do on its own, but also in this case provides excellent integration to be able to come on and provide that separation. And even if needed, the workflows that would allow the push through the stages as content moves through its stages as far as the web publishing is concerned. It's going to offer here the client to even the ability to disseminate content differently, say to be able to take its binary assets, say something that would be like taking something an image and resizing it, could be as simple as that, or taking content to PDF it if they need, and anything of that nature, whether it be image controls or editing controls built right in, or even just out of the box, server side processing that. Yeah, I have my image. I want to kind of crop it. I want to do this with it. These are just simple examples, but probably very common examples, as well as providing the REST interfaces into the content store, and even for the things that are in the web publishing side of it, to be able to have any search capability, whether it be coming from some input on the presentation layer, or even just being able to log in and search and you know, have a very fast and powerful search of what would even be available within the web publishing side of the house here. Which I think is a lot of what you spoke to, Brent, but kind of just a quick summary, I think, of where dotCMS is speaking.
Yeah, super, and that's a good transition to our next slide, actually, which is about the solution. So, you know, REST APIs figure prominently here. But let's talk about we'll get to that on the next slide, I guess. But let's talk about the overall integration solution features. So integrations are software solutions. These are full-featured, custom development efforts that that to me are not so different from a new product development or from product upgrades. So as a result, they need many of the same things. They need quality. So you know, Architect deploys automated test suites for all the software that we build. You know, at the unit, at the integration, at the end-to-end or functional level, as well as at the performance level. Furthermore, security is very important. So, you know, the appropriate UI access by user and system role is critical here. We're going to model all these things using dotCMS. dotCMS's workflow features and role and system access features, and we're going to integrate those permissions across the DMS and the web publishing platform to make sure that people can only see the content that they're really entitled to. And furthermore, this goes double for the API. You know, it would be very easy to roll out a solution and not think about how the API is actually going to be secured. But you know, certain system roles are going to need access, and we might want to actually even log people in as themselves for certain accesses through the system, which is a neat trick too. So furthermore, maintainability. This solution is expected to live a long time. So we're going to deploy appropriate log aggregation from any of the custom software that we build, which is going to you know, roll up all those system logs from all the custom software that's built, and in fact even the dotCMS logs that come out, to deploy those out to a log aggregation stack, and allow appropriate monitoring, so that people can slice and dice using like an elk stack with Elasticsearch, again, as dotCMS also features, to be able to filter all the log information that's being aggregated, and just look at the level of detail that they want, create custom dashboards, and see the health of these running servers, as well as any pain points or you know, warning or trouble spots that are arising. And furthermore, automated deployment is something that we live and breathe by. So, you know, these DevOps concerns are right in our blood, and you know, anything that we build, we need an automated deployment to our development servers. We need a regular automated deployment to our staging systems, and then we need a push-button deployment to our production systems as well. So, what kind of DMS integration features did we come up with? Well, it's going to play the role of enterprise system of record for private and public assets. We're going to be storing content types here, documents, and media. The idea here is to get the public content separated from the private content, and to have it organized into syndication channels. So now we're going to create something like a web channel, or web channel 1, web channel 2. And that's going to be published out to queuing middleware, which can consume by REST API everything that's been flagged for publish or syndication by the business. Furthermore, we've got channels exporting the assets out to CDN. So we've got public CDN assets, and then we're going to export the content and the metadata over to dotCMS, so that when we start talking about including these images or those images, they're not just local to dotCMS, but they're also pulling out from the CDN what's sitting there for you know, for performance reasons. And then we've got additional channels as well. So, you know, there's a requirement here that we can publish certain reports out to Salesforce, that we can publish certain content out to internal collaboration software. So they've got custom applications, and they've got deployed platforms as well. And we're going to want to integrate these channels with all of these systems. Furthermore, there's the idea that we're going to want to generate URLs and know what they are beforehand, so that we're not ending up with some system-generated business that's hard to deal with. And this is crucial for publishing out to the CDN as well, for that matter. So we're going to have human readable URLs, and there's going to actually be sort of an association with the translated version, where all the translated content in the DMS is going to be associated with the original. And this means that folks can find the original and they can find everything associated with it. And then as the original's version into minor or major versions, we can also have automated translations automatically, triggering these translation requests out upon any edits. So, you know, the first time content comes into that system and someone's working on it, they can say, this needs to be translated, and they can just push a button. That's custom code that's been deployed to the DMS. But then when something changes in the future, you've got an automated request that's triggering out as well, because we know that this content needs to be translated. When it comes to dotCMS and its role in the architecture, it's playing the role of web publishing platform, as we mentioned. And then we've got all the public enterprise content being syndicated out into the dotCMS toolset. So now you can do web authoring and content aggregation working in this sort of web studio mode with dotCMS, and all the content is coming from everything that's getting published into your DMS at the enterprise level. In addition, we've got the public web search being driven by dotCMS, because it's going to provide search results in the appropriate web context. Then we have this notion of working on the content based on the context. So the idea here was that if you've got a web author, maybe someone's committing some long form web copy to the DMS, and that's getting synced over to dotCMS for use in that content aggregation or authoring use case. But what if they want to change that now? Now that they see that living there on the web page in the live preview, they might want to just effect a small change or a big change. So this necessitates a two-way synchronization now. But what we can do is given the openness of these APIs with CMS content management and interoperability standards, well, we can do a checkout and a check-in behavior using dotCMS's custom workflow tasks. So now we can literally put a button there in the dotCMS UI that a user can say, check this out, make a change, and then check that back in. Furthermore, we've got an existing single sign-on capability in the enterprise. So we want to use that for centrally managed user credentials and access to all systems. You know, we've just added 2 systems that folks have to log into, whereas previously this was the domain of some technical staff. But now this is just your regular user, so they're less likely to want to manage additional credentials. So that's a real quality of life integration there, as well as making sure that credentials are managed in a consistent way, in a consolidated way across the enterprise, right? Furthermore, once we're treating content holistically, now we can build systems around our expectations. So we've got known metadata around this content. So for example, we're building now a website widget, and that website widget is going to allow, that's built in dotCMS, that's on the dotCMS front end, so it's a piece of dotCMS code. Well, what it's going to do, since we've got this known metadata in that system, is we can say expose all previous content versions, and we can say expose all alternate languages. You know, this happens to be an organization that has a certain mandated measure of transparency. So what they do is they keep all previous versions of all content they've ever published to the web, which is a serious mouthful. They keep it all available so that everyone can always see what's happened, what changes have been made. So in their use case, this is a very complex content management use case, whereas normally folks would just want the latest version to display. We have both the use case of display the latest version, as well as allow navigation to all previous versions, as well as allow all navigation to all alternate languages and all their previous versions. So certainly there are dotCMS features that allow us to do the internationalization pieces of the pages, and you're just going to see the translated content. When you switch to the Arabic version, when you switch to the French version, that's fine. You're going to see that content just because of the way dotCMS works and is organized. But in addition, users can go browsing for old versions of those things, or specifically go navigating that way if they feel like it. Finally, the DMS has an asset version awareness. So as I said, you can publish either the specific version of something from a content perspective, or you can publish a canonical URL that refers to that's more of a link that refers to the latest version of that content. So in the case where someone wants the latest to be displayed, we can achieve that use case. But in the case where someone doesn't want to unintentionally have the published content change, which again is a mandated requirement for these folks, then you can achieve that use case as well. Okay, now I'm going to turn over to Jason to talk a little bit about dotCMS and some of the industries where dotCMS systems have been deployed in big enterprise.
Sure, sure. And as you can see here, these are just four of the sectors where we've been able to accomplish similar types of integrations and solving these types of business cases that Brent has been sharing with us, and where Architect has been successful, and dotCMS, quite frankly, has been successful. And this, I think that these sectors show, to Brent's point and what he's speaking about, if you start thinking about these sectors, you realize the types of integration they need. If you're familiar at all with medical, medical's got HIPAA regulations, and education, which is mentioned here, has their FERPA regulations as well. And whereas they have systems that maintain data, and they need to be able to use those data, and certain systems are needed to be used within these sectors simply because of federal regulations or things that they have, or in education, whether it's a student information system or online course management, whether it be Blackboard or even some other type of solution or homegrown solution within any of these sectors. And dotCMS has been able to come in, solve the needs in much the same way that Brent has been sharing his expertise and Architect's expertise here, and we've been very successful, whether it be emergency room wait times, whether it be searching of physicians, whether it be indexes for financials in banking and insurance type work. We're in all of those, in a number of government solutions, not here in the U.S. and abroad as well, and really accomplished in much the same way, using a lot of the same type of expertise and solutions that Brent has been sharing it with us, and from Architect's expertise. So we could move on maybe to the next slide, Brent.
So we can chat a little bit about best practices when it comes to integration. As I mentioned before, we really consider ourselves a partner with clients, and our clients echo this. So, once we've been engaged with them, they keep us engaged, and they keep on working with us for our technical expertise and our ability to just get in there, work through the existing bias, acknowledge it, and surface additional requirements and pain points that they might not have. So, we want to get everything that and we want everyone to start thinking in an innovative way as well, and work outside of their existing assumptions. So, around this basis too, as I said before, you might come to us with expectations of what technology to use, and that's fine. Certainly, we'll talk all about that. But we do consider ourselves opinionated technology leaders, and we work on our own reference architecture, on our own technology stacks, and we do have specific stacks in the Java and the JavaScript space that we prefer over others, and that we've worked on and matured ourselves. So we're always going to translate the solutions into technology that's appropriate for the client, but we're always going to bring our technology leadership to bear as well, and try and help make the best product decisions overall. Another big aspect of how we do software delivery is to deliver business value very early in the process as well as often. So through a appropriate understanding of the business value, we're going to start with a problem definition. We're going to break that down into some epics at a very low level of granularity that help everyone who's working on this project understand how to communicate about what the requirements really are. And this kind of a seed from the problem into the initial way to break that problem down into business value into chunks of business value that then result in backlog development and story writing is really a great way to then have a release plan and a product roadmap that the user understands, that the client understands, that any stakeholders like users might understand, as well as very important for translating into technology. So the technology team has to be able to consume this information and then turn it into release packages that achieve specific results. Things like, here's our initial launch. Here is a feature set release. Here is a stability release. And then furthermore, we're always going to be, as we choose, the first slice of business value that we can release for user testing purposes, just to gather feedback, along, up to like every sprint release that builds incrementally on that, because we're an agile development organization, up to each release and the goals for that release. Well, we're always incorporating stakeholder feedback. So every sprint includes our client to do user acceptance testing and decide this is appropriate, this is not appropriate, or this is what we have to do next. And Jason's going to mention a little bit about dotCMS.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think here just continuing on with talking about best practices, and we certainly we certainly have expertise here, but also rely on partners like Architect and their expertise here. But just a few comments as we close here regarding best practices and building on what we've already talked about. This has been mentioned a number of different ways here in the last little bit of our webinar. Every use case is unique. Businesses are unique. It's one of the things that makes dotCMS great, and Architect also a very, very needed and excellent partner because that's understood. And businesses are unique. As much there isn't, one size really does not typically fit all. And while maybe you could make it work, there needs to be some ability to be flexible, both by those who are doing the implementation and also by the product, and that's really what we've spoke to here today. So just understanding, hey, I have a unique case, and then what is my case? And I need to understand the problems. I need to understand the business needs. I need to, before I start building, before I start integrating, it's sure, let me grab all the software and install it all, but that doesn't always get you where you want to be. And sometimes it's more confusing when I don't understand the problem. So one, I understand the unique, or what is unique about my case. I understand the problems. I understand and grab the scope of what are we trying to solve as we're trying to integrate. Then we need to consider what data is going to be stored where. So in this particular use case that we've spoken to today, there was already a document management system in place, and there was already a solution that was very specific to the business that had to stay regarding how files are translated and how they're managed within their system. Are they, and maybe in this case I think they were using Word or Office or some type of product like that, and it was integrated into their document management system. In addition to that, they had this whole process on how files got, or how content got translated. Well, we need to understand where is it going to live? Is that data always going to be pulled from the document management system? Is it going to live in dotCMS? Is it going to live in both places? Are we going to be syncing a lot? What's the expectation? How near time does that data need to be? Of course, as you start incorporating more gears and more publishing and systems to push through, when I make a change, what needs to happen before that thing becomes live? And does that meet the business requirement? So as you're talking about integrating, this is really important. How live does that data need to be? How near time or real time? And that's what I mean by how live. So you need to think about, where do I want things to live, and why do they want them to live there? And as a final comment, we, at least at dotCMS, would suggest to you that fewer gears is better. This is the the old less is more saying, and the fewer gears that you have, the better. You don't want to have unnecessary pieces or unnecessary cogs, because again, you start talking about workflow. I mentioned it earlier, and at least in my experience in interacting with clients, workflow systems that can get very complex can often be daunting when all you need is A, B, and C. And yes, it's great that they provide A through Z, but very, very, very few people use D through Z. Most people are using A, B, and C. And if I don't need the rest, often they just make my life harder. So I think as we look at integrating with what exists and we look at implementing software, in our experience, it's always worth considering, why am I doing this? Do I need this? And often the answer is yes, but it is a good question as you're integrating and looking at software, and even looking at new software as you're looking at products like dotCMS. Do I need this? What's it going to solve for me? And if I do bring this in, what should stay? What should not stay? Where are things living? What do I really need to solve?
Great, thanks, Jason. Yeah, software is definitely can be a challenge to maintain, and less is more. I got to agree. So that concludes the main portion of our webinar today, and I'll pass it over to Orly to moderate the Q&A.
All right, guys, thank you so much, Jason and Brent. That was fantastic. So much to hear about, so much to explore. We do have time for a couple questions. We've had a few things come in during the session, so I'll read them out loud and ask the two of you to address them if you would. So first question here is, when you say we can use as much or as little of dotCMS as we want, does that mean if I already have a system in place like a DMS, I should keep them? So Jason, that feels like a question for you.
Sure. The answer, I think, is yes, assuming the business requires it. If they don't, I mean, consolidation into one platform is certainly also an option. But again, I really think that it speaks to the less is more thing. It speaks to the concept of what is the business requirement. It goes back to understanding the scope, understanding the business problem, and then when I do that, that's when I ask this question. Obviously, the use as little or use as much as you want of something, before asking that question, you're asking the question of, well, how much do I want to use? I need to understand the scope. I need to understand the business problems. I need to understand the business requirements. And by understanding these, I'm able to understand, okay, how much do I want to use? What makes sense for me to use? And so I think it's business dependent, but for sure the answer is yes, as the business requires.
Yeah, I've seen this too. I mean, I consider dotCMS a real, I call it a Swiss Army knife. Maybe Jason doesn't like me to say it that way, but it certainly can do so much. I think it's rare that any client would use every single feature of the platform. And so as a result, you've got to really analyze your business needs and say, what are we trying to get done here? And is this specific? Is this the right place to achieve it? Custom software might be required in a place where it looks like something would be easy, but just jumping in with 2 feet first might leave you with a maintenance headache later on. Whereas maybe a little bit more, upfront development costs could actually satisfy your use case and address the performance concerns, the scalability concerns, the user's use case scenarios in a much better way. Software is not done, when it's done. So you've got to maintain it for the life that it's going to be used, and that's got to be a big concern when you're choosing which way to go on something.
Great, thanks so much, guys. So we have time for one more before we wrap up here. So someone asks, there are some items in my DMS that cannot be shared with the public. How does dotCMS handle that if the two systems are integrated? That's a good question.
Did you want me to speak? Did you want me to speak there, Brent?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so you're asking there's some items, DMS, that cannot be shared with the public. So I guess we're trying to figure out in this case for maybe security, right? Like how's dotCMS going to be able to deal security? It's kind of a broad question. I'll try to give kind of a broad a broad answer and you know, maybe give a specific or two. But obviously dotCMS has security is at the heart of what we do and is extremely important to us, including the security of content. As Brent was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of business cases where I need to ensure that content that should not be out on the public does not make it out on the public. As I was saying, in some of the sectors we work with, education, financial, medical. These are sectors that we work with where it's important for the business and the business to stay alive, and on top of that is government and federal regulations that require that data not be out there, right? There's very, very, very bad things happen for medical industry when data that should not be released is released, or even education, and certainly that would be true of finance as well. So I mean, we have full ACL within the system. That means that your access control list, that means that all of our content can be protected. It can be exposed to just only if you're a particular role or one of many roles or a particular user, or never make this public, or always make this public, or only show this to anybody who's logging in. Any of these kinds of things are possible, and there's certainly data that would never be exposed, say, on a presentation layer or in the front end. All of that would be controlled within the system, and obviously can be customized. And as far as whether everything was living within our product or in dotCMS, or whether we were integrating with another one, there's really lots of different options and lots of different ways that we would provide to deal with the security concerns here, and really the protection of data, which nowadays, I mean, many businesses, they are their data. You know, and without their data, they would cease to exist. So, and that's probably true of most businesses. So these things are of vital importance, I know, to us at dotCMS, and I'm certain to Architect as well.
For sure. Thanks so much, guys. It's been a pleasure having you on with us, and thank you to all our attendees. I hope that the session was enjoyable for you as much as it was for us. And we'll be in touch with you tomorrow as well with the recordings. So feel free to share that with any colleagues or friends who might find it useful. And until next time, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.